Welcome to the Businessmen and Women of Color podcast. I am your host, Ann Alston, and it is my pleasure to bring quality programs to all of you. I am so excited to be here once again with another amazing and powerful speaker today. I guarantee you, stick around, listen to the podcast because you're going to get fired up. Also, I want to encourage everybody to listen to all of the podcasts that is listed on the website. Take the time to go through every single page and reach out to people who you feel that can help you with your specific situation, or maybe network with other business professionals on this podcast. There's so much good information that's being shared. Make sure that you take advantage of this unique opportunity. I would also like to take a moment to thank our corporate partners, Butler Armstead Consulting Solutions, a family of authors, Human Resource Learning Center, J&F Enterprises, and Women Offering Wealth, along with our business partners and sponsors who's helping to make this event a success. In case you didn't know, the purpose of the Businessmen and Women of Color podcast is to share industry information and also encourage job seekers to enter their line of work. And this could be any profession that you hear on this podcast, so I encourage you to please take notes because there are so many different things that you can take and walk away in this podcast. So before we introduce our next speaker, I kind of wanted to make a quick comment that I am a huge supporter of STEM education. Many of you know that I represent and I volunteer for a lot of STEM activities that foster our youth and our young adults, and particularly people in college education as well. However, in this particular podcast, we're going to focus on not only STEM education, but we're also going to talk about technology in general and the relation of diversity, equity, and inclusion. How this affects us as an African American minority in the IT field is very critical. So our next amazing speaker is already out there fighting a good fight, spreading the word for us. And I want to introduce Danielle Jenkins. Danielle is an advocate for diversity and inclusion in the IT STEM industry. She has 17 years of combined experiences in helping organizations and teaching leadership and development along with HR management, employment, labor, and commercial law. She also has other experience in terms of resolution and negotiation, and her experience even transcend into segregation, equality in the industry that has fueled her passion in this advocacy. She has a goal to create a bridge between those who are underrepresented and those who are out there as group leaders. So by working together, she believes that she can successfully achieve the closure of this racial gap and open doors to infinite opportunities for women, minorities, and youth. So with that, I would like to welcome Danielle to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Anne. It's wonderful to be here this afternoon and to just share my knowledge and my information and research to try to help someone.
Absolutely. So tell us about your background and what was it that got you into this line of work?
Well, recently, just to let you know, I am now Dr. Danielle Jenkins.
Wow,
I have been,
doctor.
yes, absolutely,
Oh my goodness,
yes.
congratulations.
Thank you so much. I have been in the last, I would say, 3 years conducting research on gender diversity and racial diversity in IT. Particularly, it's gender diversity. I just noticed there's a lot of going on now, even in the industry, where women are, the lack of women in the industry, and trying to find solutions. And based on my research and based on, what's the current climate in the industry, I felt like I needed to be a part of, instead of, talking about it, but just advocating and try to find solutions to come together, industry, companies, educators, and try to make real solutions to this problem, because there is a problem. So that is where it first began, being passionate about women, empowering women in the workplace, empowering women in the IT industry and STEM. And also, I'm fascinated by technology. I use a lot of databases, and I learned different databases very quickly, and just realizing that it's necessary for us to be a part of this industry. Our voices need to be heard. We need to be a part of the decision making. Technology impacts every area of our lives, so there's no reason why we should not be a part of this wonderful industry.
Right, absolutely. So let me ask you a question, Danielle. Have you always been in the technology realm, or were you always in the HR spectrum? So I'm just trying to get an idea of how
Mm.
you stumbled upon the need for women to be represented in the IT industry.
Great. I have been in the HR employment law industry for about, I would say, 7, 8 years, and work with a lot of corporate companies. And this has just been some of the major problems that are going on in the industry, training, diversity that I've been a part of. So that has drawn me to the industry and drawn me to my passion in finding solutions and being an advocate for women in this industry. So it first began with the HR management and diversity inclusion background that I have for working in the employment and labor law field. And then just I mean, I've had passion for women, for as long as I can remember, and empower them and encouraging them and trying to inspire them to not be afraid of this industry and try to find ways for us all to work together to make sure they're a part of this industry.
Okay. I know as an IT, and I'm gonna just speak for myself and my experience, it was very difficult for me to work in the industry. And even though I was able to get in and learn how to move around within the
Mhm.
space that I was in, it was still very difficult to have that same level of respect or the same
Right.
level of view as another IT professional. I think the reason why I've been kind of successful is because I tried to remain neutral. However, there were a
Right.
lot of opportunities that was not afforded to me because of my gender or my race or being the only
Mhm.
person of color who was in a IT spectrum. And I often was like you, was wanting to know who is out there trying to get women to or fight for
Mhm.
women to be in this realm. There was very few of us. I know there were many. It seemed
Right.
like many, but really that number is really low. And
Right.
when I think about my experience as being in the IT, starting from when I took the first leap all the way back in, I don't know, so many years ago, I don't even want to say,
Mhm.
but when I took that first leap from being an executive assistant or data rep or whatever I was back then and getting my first IT, that was my first real help desk position. And even in that position, it was only two of us. And I was heavily scrutinized by the field people that used to go out on the floor and help end users. I was talked about, joked upon. But you know what? I stuck in
Mhm.
there and I didn't
Mhm.
let that get to me. But I often, like you, wanted to find out who is out there fighting for
Right.
women in general, not just the fact about race, but women in general to do this kind of work. It's no different when you have a woman who wants to be a mechanic or do something that other men do. It's
Right.
always looked upon, this is not your field of work. And so it,
Right.
was it that clicked for you and said, okay, I'm getting tired of hearing this kind of stuff from folks and you wanted
Right.
to get
Right.
into it?
Absolutely. I mean, that's part of it, but I mean, working, I've also been the HR employment law and different commercial law, business law, and realizing, yes, it's a male dominated industry. And wanting to find, when I say solutions, and have women come up with strategies, like you just said, how you hung in there. And what you see is women that are in there, and sometimes they drop out, or sometimes they leave the industry because of the organizational culture. So what I want to do is, one, try to help women come up with a strategy, whether it be understanding you need to understand the political landscape or how to get ahead, um, whether it be mentors, sponsorships, whether it be coming up with relevant training and certification, and just kind of help them stay in the field and not to drop out, even though that there is a culture, and maybe that is the issue. Of course, there's a hostile environment, there's sexist, And then that's another part, dealing with the leaders and how do you create a more positive organizational culture where everybody can thrive. So there's actually two parts. It's one, dealing with the organizational culture, and there's two, dealing with just helping women come up with different strategies to overcome those barriers and those challenges.
Okay, so let me ask another question. In terms of your reach of what you want to do for women, are you also extending this to our men as well in terms of IT? Because we, even though they are there and it's a male dominant, we still have a low presence of black men in STEM
Yeah,
careers, specifically
absolutely.
technology in the area where I am, cybersecurity, engineering, those types of fields. Um, I'm in a position now where I'm a system engineer, and it's kind of diverse. However, there is not a big presence of young people in the
Right.
area where I am. I'm pretty sure there are in other areas, but not in the area that I am. And that is one of the reasons why I'm a heavy supporter for STEM education, is to get them
Mhm.
to recognize that you don't have to fall for the traditional jobs all the time. There's apps being created. There's always software being created. There's always web
Right.
pages being created. And you can literally get into one of those fields and you can really make something out of it if you just kind of be more interested in it. So I kind of want
Absolutely.
to
And
get your perspective on that.
right. And I know I focus a lot on the women, because, I am a woman, and, women are very important to me. And, that's just a part of me that I'm very passionate about. But yes, absolutely, because I feel as a community that we need to also focus on this issue. Um, Young girls and young boys of color, and have opportunities for them, and realize, like, look, you can't be left behind. This is something that we have to find solutions with K through 12. We have to, whether it be nonprofit organizations. I see so many organizations out there now, Black Girls Code, and it's wonderful, because sometimes we talk about the gender diversity, but sometimes it's hard to really talk about the racial diversity, which I found. And I do want to focus on diversity as well, gender, racial diversity, and finding ways to, like you said, to keep the young people engaged. There's apps, broadening their views, let them know it's interesting, let them know that it's not just about coding, let them know there's other things they can do. And I think that's what's missing. I think we have a lot of people who just think it's engineering and coding. Yeah, that's a big part of it, but there's other things that you can do in the industry. I've interviewed so many different women, and they have so many different backgrounds. Whether I met a lady who's she's in the law field, and how she was able to think analytical. Somebody was in psychology and help them, deal with their teams, project management. So there's so many different things that we can tell our young people that yes, coding is important. That's a part of the industry, but you can also have a broader view of what technology is, and how you can be a part of it, and how whatever your interests are and your passions, you like to draw, you can use that and help design something. So I think that's what we need to tell our young people, because I don't really think that's being voiced to our youth. So I
You're
see
right.
girls
I
that,
don't think it is either. And I think nowadays the young people are really looking to be creative. When I look back
mhm,
at my own sons, and I can only speak for my own sons, and maybe some of the ones that I've seen before, but in my view, I see that they take the skills that they have and they turn it into something magical, because
yes,
we no longer foster the imagination that our kids
yes,
have anymore. And what I try to do for my own boys is to get them to come out of the box, to open up their imagination to something that they can create and actually own. Something that they own that
absolutely,
is theirs. And we're
yes.
so busy emulating so many things that's already been created. And that's great, because that's a great platform to follow. But I find that the philosophy that I have is, let's take what you have and create something new. It's
Yes.
some new. And so what I try to do with them, and I really need to start putting that more into the teachings when I do the career
Yes.
transition workshops, is because they see that there's a resume, they see all of that. But you're right, they're not being taught, at least from what I'm seeing on my end, and I could be wrong, that that missing imagination of what the
Mhm.
possibilities could be and what the value
Right.
of it could it might be missing from this equation. And
Yes.
so let me ask you a question, Daniel, because I'm going to play devil's advocate. What is your perception on what exactly is the problem with diversity in general when it comes to IT? I mean, I really want to get to the heart of it, because people, they give me
Mhm.
their answer, and I had another lady, she was very direct, but I always like to see what other people think in terms of the core of the true problem when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion, regardless if it's
Right.
IT or any other industry.
Right. And that's interesting because I actually had a guy saying to me, "Oh, they just don't care." And I thought to myself, I said, I just don't believe that. I think that I think they don't know how to. I think it's hard for them to. I kind of feel like it's a secret society. There's points. I think it's like a secret society, and they feel like it's they because what happens is it's all about who they know, who they went to school with, and they don't come out of their network, or they don't come out of the comfort zone. And I think that part of it is they don't really know how to include other people. And when I say that, it's like they can say women are in, oh, we have women in, all these different IT companies. I said, but they still are not feeling like they're included. There's still a culture. It's a culture issue. Yes, I'm not going to name the company, but yeah, you may have ping pong on Friday and beer night. But how is that creating an atmosphere for a woman to thrive? Or you may decide that you want to have fertility treatments that you offer the women. Well, what does that say to the woman? That, yeah, you're responsible for the family. I mean, none of that to me is solving the problem. It's still perpetuating the issue and the culture that, it's the woman's problem, and it's a culture problem that you have to create an environment. And it's not to say, let's male bash or anything, but we can work together. We can work together as men and women and understand that we are both valuable to the industry. So I think part of it is a cultural problem that no one really wants to address, but they have all the perks and all the things and smoke screens to kind of take away from what the real issue is. And two, I think as women, sometimes we sabotage our own self, and we give up too quickly, or we don't really know how to navigate or understand the politics. I remember talking to one lady, and she said sometimes, women, we over explain, we over apologize. And sometimes you just have to say, hey, if there's a meeting that, oh, I have to pick up the children, I got to go do this for the husband, just say, hey, no, there's a conflict, and let's reschedule. So sometimes we make it sabotage ourselves, and we need to learn how to navigate various industries, and learn how to navigate these industries and how to get the social capital we need to advance, and the
Yeah,
people around us to advance.
right. I totally agree with that. I also wanted to add that another reason why this has perpetuated is because of media. Media
Mm,
speaks to a lot of how we treat each other. When we're constantly
mm,
seeing negative images of how we treat each other, that to me translates
mm,
into everything. It translates at home, it translates when you're out on the
mm.
street shopping, it translates when you go to work and you don't know someone that well. I think a lot of people, they are very standoffish when they have already taken in a bunch
You're
of
right.
negative energies. This
You're
is
right.
something that I said in my Empower Thyself book, is how technology, and I specifically said this on page 1, is how the media has, and I'm not
Mm,
blaming all media, I'm just saying the ones
right.
that perpetuate this thing. They tend to
Right.
put us, and particularly women in general, in this stereotype And it plays on our psyche, on our self-confidence. It
Mhm.
plays on
Right.
everything that we think about each other. And then what happens is that we tend to become defensive and very
Right.
standoffish, and then we lack that
Mhm.
self-esteem that we need. And then for the
Mhm.
men, they're also feeling it, but they handle it differently. And so when we go
Right.
into the workplace, I don't want to talk to you, you don't want to talk to me, and then they become managers, and then nobody is talking to anyone, and nobody's including
Mhm.
anyone. And like you said,
Mhm.
just because you go to a company function, it's not inclusion. It's not making me feel like I'm included. All you're doing is
Right.
drinking with me. However, if it comes down to a project or new challenges or you
Mhm.
want to promote me, this is when you show the inclusion. This is when you
Right.
show that I'm equal. This is when you respect diversity. And I will only speak from my experience and my whole entire work experience, it has always been an issue with all three of them, simply because
Mm.
people have viewed people in a certain stereotype. And we as African Americans have to get out of doing that to each other. That's the first thing.
Absolutely.
We need to look at each
Yes.
other as equal partners, and that
Yep.
one person helps another person, we all win together. But until we do
Absolutely.
that, we're never going to actually have a true diversity, equity, and inclusion practice, because it's just going to be a
Right.
method. To me, it's just going to be a method that's put in place just to try to keep the peace, when in reality, you're not really dealing with. And I'll probably get a whole bunch of comments for that, but it's to me, it's just
Yeah,
the
no,
truth.
I
I mean, it happens, and
right,
and we
right.
do this to ourselves in the minority community. We do this to ourselves more than
Yeah.
any other culture out there. So we can't just blame it on
Right.
other cultures. But I'm just saying that
Absolutely.
because I just feel so passionate about this topic, because it is a sore point
Yeah.
for me, for people who are
Yeah.
in IT or any other industry, because we all feel like we deserve the right to move up and grow and enhance, our careers.
Right. And I think you have a good point, because there's some things that we do as a community, like, because sometimes understanding, you know, that we have, once you have to uplift each other, we have to encourage each other. And I think sometimes, if someone gets in and you're like, well, they're only going to have one of us, and I hear this in various industries, and it's like, and I can't help anyone. It's like, no, that's not true, because I feel like what's for you is yours, and no one can take that. So I don't mind helping someone else. And I think we have to get away from that mentality and learn how to support each other and lift each other up and bring people in. Someone said, yeah, I come through the back door to open up the front door for other people. And I like that analogy, because, I feel like that's the only way that we're going to see advancement in the community. And you see other cultures and communities doing it for themselves. And it's like, we need to do it. Enough's enough. And
Yeah,
I think that's,
enough is
and I
enough.
think, yeah, enough is enough. I mean, we have a
Yeah.
generation that could possibly be left behind. I mean, it's just, it scared me. It was just, I'm seeing, I'm just seeing our communities and how it could be better by, whether it be jobs, employment. If you could take, you know, high school students and they go into code, I mean, they have opportunities. They don't have to worry about not knowing a skill and not being able to find a job, and I feel like we just need to be focusing on ways to help our community, ways to employment. It comes down to even our young men. They feel like they have opportunities. Maybe they won't go to other negative things other things that they'll do. So I just see opportunities for our young people, opportunities for our community, and I just want to be a part of helping any way I can.
One of the things I also want to add to the list that you made about that is, I kind of feel very strongly about this point too, that we have to not only do all the things that you said, but we also need to ensure that our parents are not also precipitating these issues.
Mhm.
Our children, like you said, is going to be our future. They're the ones that's going to be inspired. And if we're not teaching them to be proud of themselves,
Right.
know their
Right.
potential, know what they need to do to make it work, and also for people who are in positions that have some type of power, you need to start hiring these young men and women. Start hiring
Absolutely.
them, bring in more interns, show them what potential they have. A lot of these companies, even if you're a small business, if you just bring one student in to learn
Right.
something, it
Mhm.
makes a difference.
It
Make them feel
does.
included.
Right.
And I wish that uh, there could be stronger things that we could do, but until we actually lock arms and actually do this together, it's going to be a uphill battle. It's
Right.
definitely going
Well,
to
and
be. I
not
mean, I
just
have so many
that.
emotions about it.
Right. But also, and learning, like you said, use your imagination, find your passions, and create something for yourself. I'm not saying that you have to go work for these companies. Maybe you're going to be the next whatever
Right.
Snapchat,
That's
and
right.
I think that's what we need to
Mm,
promote. It's not
yes.
necessarily go work for someone else, but go in there and whatever you're passionate about, do it and do it, excellence and maybe you're going to be an entrepreneur and that's the kind of mindset that we need to have, not like go into a company and you're going to work there and that's it, but there's other things that you can do and you can be successful at that.
Absolutely. The only reason why I was saying that they do need to do that, though, Danielle, is because they need to see what's currently there so they know what to
Yeah.
create. Yeah,
Right.
if you already know what's there, then automatically your mind is going to start you're going to be imaginative and you're going to start thinking of different ways that you can make things better. And I highly encourage
Right.
that, particularly in the African American community. Even if you're a small business, if you brought somebody in on a summer job for a few weeks just to learn what you learn, it makes a difference. It makes a
Right.
huge
It
difference.
does.
There's too many of us that's out here now as a small business who probably say, oh, I can't afford to pay a child or a young person X amount of dollars for X amount of weeks. However, that person may be the person that you need later on.
Mhm.
That's how people get really good workers. This is how
Absolutely.
they feel included. I mean, when I worked at the law firm, they went to universities and they said, okay, you know what?
Mhm.
I want the top people in the college to come and I'm gonna pay you $125,000. Now these are just interns for what, 12 weeks of work? And they're making
Right.
just as much as a paralegal or or a junior lawyer,
Right.
and they're coming in and after they do their little stint, they get hired. Why are we not doing that for some of the people here?
Absolutely. I
My
totally
son,
agree with
and I'm gonna
that.
use my son as an example. My son, he participated in this organization. I'm not gonna name it only because I don't want to get sued. Well, he
Right.
participated as an IT person 2 years in a row. So
Mhm.
for me, I'm looking, okay, you must have liked him that much, you brought him back. So I'm looking for you to hire him when he graduates. If you're not doing that, then something is wrong.
Right. Right.
Something is wrong. And a lot of these kids, they're coming out of high school, and what they're doing is they're gravitating to careers in which they feel like they're going to be included. And they
Got
feel that
it.
they're going to be equal because they're going to get that degree, they're going to go get that certification, they're going to go do whatever they can do, and then they hit the brick wall. And it's
Right.
not because of the diversity, equity, inclusion. It's because they can't even get in the door to be diverse,
Right.
included, and feel equal. And that's where I have my
Right.
biggest passion in being a
Right.
mentor and helping, because I'm like, this is why I teach career preparation. And for everybody who's listening, this is why it's imperative that you choose the right career,
Right.
because and I'm sorry to say, being a minority, it is hard. And I know the point I was going to make earlier is that given the last 2 years with the political of the presidency and everything,
Mhm.
it makes people feel like I don't want to include you because I might be
Right.
considered a racist. or I might be considered someone who don't like other races, but I'm not a racist, if you know what I'm saying, Dan.
Right,
And I
right,
think for
right,
me, this perpetrates further issues with diversity, equity, and inclusion.
right. No, I understand. The political climate right now is not good. The negativity, the hostile organizational culture in these companies, things are coming out, lawsuits, diversity reports. I mean, they're not in a good light right now. So I think a lot of them are going to want to find something to help, find some solutions. And right now, I think this is a perfect time. Like I was saying, it's all about timing. I think this is a perfect time for us to come together as a community, whether it be educational, educators, um, companies, nonprofits. This is a perfect time for us to be creative and find out how we can be a part of the solution. Like I said, we have the Black Girls That Code, and it's great. And it's like we need more of those organizations. We need more organizations that mentoring organizations in the industry, not just coding, but that deal with self-esteem, deal with confidence, deal with broader views of IT. So these young people can know, like, hey, this is something I can do, and go for it, and not to be deterred from it. And yeah, it's a male-dominated industry, but don't let that stop you. Keep going. Perseverance is important. Have mentors, have sponsors, and just most importantly, you have to have confidence in yourself. And like you're saying, that's one of the biggest
Yeah.
problems is we don't have that confidence. And when I do
Mhm.
my executive coaching, I just like to push that. And we have to have confidence in our skill set, confidence in who we are, confidence in our voice and what we bring to the table, and it matters. It really does matter. So that's where I am. That's my passion.
Okay. So I have another question for you, Danielle. If you had to give one piece of advice for new businesses in terms of DEI and how they see their business growing with staff, or if they are a
Hmm.
small business with some staff, what is the one piece of advice that you will want to give to them?
I would say you have to get creative. There are talented people out there. Sometimes I feel, we can't find them, or where are they? And sometimes you have to be a little creative, and I feel like there's a disconnect. I feel like it's not just having a computer science degree, it's not just having an engineering degree, it's not just having an MBA, but that you can find great talent in someone who has maybe an art degree, a design degree, a psychology degree, and I think that's what I would tell HR professionals in the industry. You have to be creative. You have to have a more diverse perspective and where to find good talent. And I think that's what's missing, because I think it's just been, computer science, MBA, engineering. Yes, those are all important, but there's other things that can, other diverse backgrounds that can also contribute to the organization and the organization's success. And I would think that would be a way to go get talent and diverse talent.
Okay, so what about career seekers who have the passion that me and you have? What would you say to them?
As far as wanting to be in IT,
Want to be IT, or just fight for us or anyone to be in a diverse situation and feel included and feel equal?
I would say the best quote I've seen, I would say in the last month, was from Oprah, when it says, "There's always going to be sexism, there's always going to be racism, but how to overcome that is everything I do is in excellence." And I have to say that. I said, you have to have a great work ethic. You have to have a good attitude. You have to remain positive. You can't let your circumstances affect who you are as a person. And one of the things I think I hear all the time from people around me is that you're positive, Danielle. And you have to stay positive, because, yeah, it's easy to have the negativity bring you down, and think that change is never going to occur. But I mean, every little every little positive attitude or everything that you can think of, that you feel like I can make a difference or change is possible. Keep that. Hold on to that. And don't let anybody think and make you feel hopeless, but feel like, you know what, change is possible. And I think that's the mindset that we need to have as a community. Yeah, there's going to be people who don't like us. Yeah, there's going to be racism. There's going to be people sexist, but don't let that stop and deter you from your goals and where you want to be.
Absolutely. So, as this is a networking event and everybody's listening and those who are participating, what does Danielle Jenkins need to thrive in the causes that you are fighting for?
I just think support from our community, and any ways that we can collaborate together would be great, because you can't do this by yourself. So, like Ann, you're very involved in career development, finding ways to collaborate with you and finding ways to collaborate with each other. I think that's the most important thing that we can do as a community. It's not about just one person being successful, but all together we can be successful together. And I think that's where we have to be, understand that we need each other, collaborating, finding ways to support each other. And I think that would make a big difference in our community.
Absolutely, and I totally agree with you. I would say, to add to the end of that, is that we have to not only collaborate and work together, but we also have to make sure that we follow through and actually support each other, meaning
Yes,
taking the proper action to make sure that whatever we set out to do, that we actually have an outcome and a result. Because a lot of
right,
times, people will go after for what they want to get out of it, but it's bigger than
right.
us. This issue is bigger than us,
It's
and
bigger
I'm
than
really
us.
talking, yeah, it's bigger than us. And I want everybody who's listening to this podcast, this is not a racial thing. This is really, like she said, a cultural thing. There are so many different reasons why people feel that they're not included, or they're not in a diverse situation, or that there's inclusion in the workplace that makes them feel unwanted. And whatever those reasons are, we have to change our mindset to say
Right.
we are one people, regardless of race and gender. We are one people, and we should treat each other as one people. So, with that, I want to thank you, Danielle, for being on the podcast today. You got me fired up over here.
Yes.
And,
Thank you, Ann.
I'm gonna tell you, I really appreciate it. And if anybody else is just as fired up as we are based on this conversation, I really encourage you to reach out to me, reach out to Danielle, reach out to the other diversity and inclusion podcast participants that are going to be on this podcast. Please also reach out to other networkers that are on this podcast if there's a service for you, because we can only be a stronger community if we work together and network and collaborate. So thank you, Danielle, for being on the podcast. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, Ann, for having me.